So good evening, everyone. The hour being 7:11 p.m. on Monday, September 11th, 2023. I'd like to call to order City of Laconia City Council meeting. Prior to starting the meeting, I'm wondering if Chief Joubert would come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. We're joined this evening by Recording Secretary Katie Gargano. I'd ask her to please call the roll.
Counselor Cheney,
Here.
Counselor Susie,
Here.
Counselor Littman,
Here.
Counselor Haynes,
Here.
Counselor Bogert.
Here.
Oh, Mayor Hosmer, sorry.
I'm definitely here. Is Counselor Felch, was he?
I didn't hear the,
No, he's not here tonight.
He is
He's on
not here tonight.
vacation.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you. We're also joined at council table tonight by Kirk Biotti, our Laconia City Manager, Glenn Smith, our Finance Director as well. Following along on our agenda, item number 7, which is acceptance of minutes from previous meetings. Item number 7A is City Council regular meeting minutes of August 28th, 2023. Minutes of this meeting were distributed to the members of the Laconia City Council on September 6, 2023. With no corrections or changes submitted to the clerk, the minutes will be accepted as distributed. We have no consent and action items. Agenda item number 9 is citizens' comments for matters not on the agenda. If there's something a member of the public would like to speak to and it is not on tonight's agenda, now would be the appropriate time. Okay, seeing none, move along to agenda item number 13, which is under public hearings, and item number 13A, public hearing for resolution 2023-22, establishment of a bridge repair and reconstruction capital reserve fund, and to transfer $65,500 to the fund. Notice of this hearing was made available in the August 30th, 2023 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, and posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. I'd like to open the public hearing on this matter at 7:14 p.m. Anyone here in the chamber who would like to speak to this, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing that no one has stepped forward, I'm going to close the public hearing 20 seconds after I opened it, still at 7:14 p.m. This may be taken up later on this evening under unfinished business. Moving on to item number 13B, public hearing for resolution 2023-23, establishment of a street and highway project capital reserve fund and transfer of $52,400 to that fund. Notice of this hearing, public hearing, was made available in the August 30th, 2023 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun and posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. This matter may be taken up under unfinished business as well this evening. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:15 p.m. If anyone is here and would like to speak to that, this matter, now would be the appropriate time. I'm going to close the public hearing 20 seconds later at 7:15 p.m. Move on to item number 13C. Public hearing for resolution 2023-24, approval of bonding for the purpose of purchasing a replacement fire engine. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the August 30th, 2023 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. I'd like to open this public hearing at 7:15 p.m. If anyone here would like to speak to that, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing no one has stepped forward, we're going to close this public hearing on agenda item 13C at 7:16 p.m. Again, we'll be taking that up under unfinished business later on this evening. Agenda item number 13D, public hearing for resolution 2023-25, approval of bonding to fund sanitary sewer fund capital projects for the period of fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2026. Notice of this public hearing was made available in August 30th, 2023 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. I'd like to open this public hearing at 7:16 PM. Anyone here want to speak to that? Now would be the appropriate time. Seeing that no one has spoken or intends to speak, we're going to close that just a couple seconds later. Still at 7:16 PM. Moving on to agenda item number 13F. Oops, 13E. Thank you once again for labeling these the way you do. Public hearing for Resolution 2023-25, approval of the 2026 Weirs Boulevard Route 3 Bridge over Langley Brook, New Hampshire DOT project agreement. Notice of this hearing was made available on the August 30th, 2023 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. I'd like to open this public hearing at 7:17 PM. If anyone would like to speak to this, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing that no one is stepping forward, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:17 PM. This matter may be taken up under unfinished business later on this evening. Moving now to agenda item 13F, public hearing, ownership and maintenance of Pickerel Pond Road. Notice of this public hearing was made available in the August 30th, 2023 edition of Laconia Daily Sun, posted at Laconia City Hall, Laconia Community Center, Laconia Public Library, and the offices of the SAU. I'd like to open the public hearing at 7:17 PM. If anyone's here and would like to speak to this, now would be the appropriate time. You all gotta be loading up and holding back for something. This must be it.
You were on a good run.
I was, yeah, I was, right.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'm not sure if, I have questions that, about, we all received letters. I'm a resident, my name is Dave, I live on Pickerel Pond Road.
Welcome back, Dave.
And I guess I had a few questions on the surveying process and how it's done as far as, is it the center of the road? Is it a distance from the center of the road? And I think some of the other members that are here tonight may have some other questions. Is now the appropriate time to ask those questions?
I think you can pose the questions. I'm not sure if they can all be answered with the staff in attendance this evening, but because you're making them on the record, those questions that maybe can't be answered are at least part of the record, and we can follow up on that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so I would encourage you to make your statement in regards to this, pose the questions, let's see how much we can work through.
Well, I guess my question would be, is obviously this Pickerel Pond Road exists now. So if the survey were to go through, on that class road, what would be the width of the road for the city to adopt it as a public road? And do they go with the center line of the existing road, or is there some documents that hypothetically, if the road goes in a different direction than what it goes right now, how does the city adapt to that?
So I guess your first question would be width of the road. I don't know if we're prepared to answer that, city manager, or something we can follow up at this point.
Yeah, I think we'd follow up. There's, with the maps that we've seen and some of the work that we've done, this would be done professional surveying. So there's still some work to do on that exact answer for width, and because that's where some of the discrepancy falls into, is exactly that on current width.
Okay.
Width of the road and
Yeah.
where the center line is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And adding to that, I know that a hot topic has been sidewalks with current development taking place within the city of Laconia. Would the city be looking at the width of the road to include sidewalks? Just a question as a property owner, because substantially you could lose a fair amount of frontage of your, if sidewalks were to be considered to be part of this process.
That question has not come up until tonight and hasn't really been considered. I don't think that was intended in what we talked about, but now that it's a question that was posed, we can certainly, put that on our
Great, thank you.
question list, yeah.
And I think I've probably exhausted my questions relative to.
I
what
still
we
got
talked
ink,
about
so
tonight.
it's,
Okay, I thank you.
Yeah, of course, Dave. Thanks for coming tonight. Dave, do you have 1 second? Can you take a question? Would you take a question from one of the counselors?
Just have a question in terms of the 2 points you raised. Assuming you got an answer back that was acceptable, are you for or against the the proposal to?
Oh, I am absolutely for, and I'll tell you why I'm for. There's at least three brooks that cross under Pickerel Pond Road. Two of them happen to be on my property, and this summer, those brooks have been, they've been carrying a lot of water. My fear is, and maybe it's something that's unfounded, but if we had a situation like we've had down in the southwestern part of the state where enormous amounts of water all of a sudden flood out a road, and we lose the road, I would hope that the city wouldn't say, guys, we'll get to it when we can get to it. I mean, this is how we traverse to and from our homes. That's one of the reasons, as well as the overall maintenance of the road. As we all know, if anybody's traveled that road, it hasn't been maintained for a number of years. And I don't want to see a paved highway, but I'd like to see some drainage. I'd like to see something so that the road just doesn't continue to deteriorate, because over the last, I've been there 35 years, and back when it was a gravel road, the town or the city could maintain it, in my opinion, better than they could a tar road. They were up there multiple times a year with a grader, did a great job. It's a different situation now, but to answer your question, and sorry I'm so long-winded and I talk with my hands so much. But yes, I am absolutely for the city taking over the road, and that's what I would hope. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, just in terms of anybody else that come up, I would have the same question.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
thanks. Anyone else like to speak?
Good evening.
Good evening, welcome.
My name is Karen LaFlamme, and I live on Pickerel Pond Road. I moved on to Pickerel Pond Road, and when I financed the house, it was considered a public road, and your records show it as a public road. I understand it's not a private road, you know, because most mortgage companies would want a road maintenance agreement at that time if it was a private road. It's been maintained. When I moved in, there was a brand-new paved road, gorgeous, and I don't understand why we need to get it wider or I know there's drainage issues and so forth that they're concerned about, and like David just said, there's some brooks that go under the road and need some culverts and stuff that are gonna, you know, divert that water where it's supposed to go. But I don't understand how we got to the town maintaining this road all these years. It's considered a public road on your town records, and why is this all happening is I guess I'm confused about.
Are you for or against the public road?
I thought it was a public road. I never thought it was anything but a public road. And I get this certified letter talking about 1740 and Meredith, and I didn't understand. I truly came here so baffled. I'm trying to figure out how we even got here, because the road
He's
has
looking
been
towards me.
being maintained right along.
Excellent question. Glad we have the city manager.
Thank you. So, the city has been maintaining that this is, under the auspice that it's not a public road.
Does it have it as a private road on the town records?
We don't have anything that's definitive saying that this is public road. However, we had information brought to us that seems to contraindicate that it's not, and makes it look like it could potentially have been accepted many, many years ago. That's why you start getting dates of 1800s.
Yeah,
So we went through our lawyers. Our lawyers are in that same position of saying, you know, we can't say that you're right or wrong in the decision if it's public or private. The letter was a recommendation by them to say, we could either say, yes, we've said this is ours all along and it's ours, or we could say, no, we believe this to be private all along, and so it's not a public road. The in-between piece was to send those letters out, which is why you received those letters, to get some feedback from the owners on that road to believe. What are your thoughts? Are you working just what you're saying, what the other gentleman said, and I know others in the audience are saying as well? No, we've been under the belief all along. We have reason to believe, some people even have documentation to believe, that this is a public road and has been all along. It's helping the council to inform their decision, that it's public. And that's helping the council to inform them for their decision on if how we want to move forward. Normally, if we had a private road and we were going to make it public, there's a process that we go through. We're trying to determine if we need to go through that process or not. This may actually take us in a direction where we don't have to go through that process. And that's what all, it's really fact-finding that we're doing right now and gathering all this information and why, you know, the letters were sent out in hopes of getting information from the owners that are on that road, exactly what you guys are doing tonight.
Isn't there something, you know, that says if you own a road or maintain something or use it, you paved it in 2016, you paved it before that in 2003. Why did you do that if that was not a public road?
Well, that's a very fair question. I wasn't here, and I can't tell you that. So I do not know, but I think as we dug
So you're equally as confused as I am.
No, I don't think I'm equally as confused that I have many concerns that it dates back centuries, literally, that we have to trace it back to determine where we stand right now. That takes a little bit of work. So our thought process is, if it is going to become a public road, the city's going to own it and maintain it, want to make sure that we follow the appropriate process so somebody 20 or 30 or 300 years from now doesn't have to go through it again. I think we're trying to clear up what has been assumed in the past, but maybe didn't have the full evidentiary grounds to act on that assumption. But I think clarity is our best practice right now. And then once we establish that, we can move forward with what is hopefully satisfactory to all the residents
And
and
it
abutters.
doesn't fall under adverse possession where you've used it?
I don't think it's an adverse possession issue, but I'd have to leave that to a legal to determine adverse possession on behalf of a public entity. Don't know.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good evening. My name's Bruce LeBranch. I'm a trustee for the LeBranch Family Trust for 140 Pickerel
Bruce?
Pond Road. Oh, sorry.
That's quite all right. Welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. My question is, when was it determined it wasn't a public road? And who determined it?
I think in order to become a public road, you have to take an affirmative act to declare it a public road. If someone's just assuming it's a public road and it's never been made a public road and never followed the proper protocol, doesn't automatically make it a public road. Just means that someone may be relying on something that's a little specious in order to
Yes,
establish
it's
it.
2023 and we're trying to determine if Pickerel Pond is a public or private road. It seems like a long time into the city's history not to know that you either own the road or
It's
you don't.
extraordinarily long, but I think that we're trying to do it right this time, because I don't think it's been done properly for the past couple hundred years. We're just trying to get it. So going forward, whether your own property, consider purchasing it, or whether a bank is going to loan money on property that abuts it, they can be 100% confident that it is either private or public. We're trying to settle that right now, and they can move forward accordingly.
Can I interject, Mr. Mayor?
You may.
I think you should understand this is not, Pickerel Pond Road has been picked by itself to deal with this problem. As a matter of fact, I think the number was closer to 100 roads in town that we can't unequivocally prove the town accepted. So it's not like a year ago we said, oh, let's do something about Pickerel Pond Road. That's
Correct.
We're going through a whole process. Pickerel Pond happens to be the subject tonight, but there's gonna be more of these. And there, in fact, have been some of these going over the last year or so.
I get it. I'm happy to be a taxpayer of the city of Laconia, multiple properties. You take my tax dollars, but you want to not give me the same service as everybody else. That's my question. I'll be happy to find out what you get in the future, so I can determine, do we own
I
and
think
have a
that's,
public
and
road?
I don't want to debate this, but I think that's contrary to what we're trying to establish here, Bruce. And I'm not looking to
I
be
mean,
adversarial.
I'm
but-
paying taxes.
and I have
would
no doubt that
expect
you're receive- I have no doubt
my
you're
drainage
receive-
ditches get cleaned,
Okay.
that's all.
I have no doubt that you're receiving a number of services from the city
Mm-hmm.
as a result of you paying taxes, and we appreciate that. That's what makes the city work. But I think what we need to do is add some clarity to this. And
We are getting services, but am I getting the same service as how many other 100 roads that you're not sure that you own? Are we all treated equally, would be my next question. As
I
non-
suspect that you are, though I'm quite sure that if people were to come forward and say, my road isn't getting the type of maintenance that other roads in the city, public roads in the city are getting, and I feel like I'm getting the short end of the stick, they may have a case to make there.
That's all I'm saying is if we're determining this, I'm happy to find out if it is or if it isn't. But I'd like to see, our tax dollars distributed equally and fairly to maintain our roads so they don't wash out. My road should be passable as well as Shore Drive or downtown Laconia. I shouldn't have to go 5 feet in the road when the brush is hanging out in the road. I shouldn't have to avoid a 2-foot boulder in the road that's pushing through the asphalt when I drive down other town roads, city roads that are better maintained. That's all I'm saying.
Bruce, this is what they're trying to do here.
I know.
Give them a chance.
I am. I'm just,
Okay.
you heard from me. I'm just stating my fact that if it's equal and just, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
It's everybody at this table's intent that you and everybody else get treated fairly and equally.
Just
All
made
right.
my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Hi, my name is Linda Golden, and I own 2 pieces of property on Pickerel Pond Road. And I'm just concerned a little bit here. I grew up on that road. My parents grew up there, so. But anyways, is it going to affect our taxes by doing all this? And I know there was something about an easement, so that means they might take some of our land to make this road right. Am I correct on that?
I can't say for certain, but I don't think this is going to have a direct impact on your taxes. I
Oh,
don't think
okay.
so, but
No,
the
no.
easement
And
portion
the
I'll-
easement piece, I will speak to. One of the issues that we're running into is, no matter what document we look at, is the defining of how wide the road really is. So anytime we're gonna go in to do work, if we're gonna add drainage work, if we're going to maintain the road, and we're gonna survey and define how wide the road is, it could end up being an issue where there is an easement need onto some of the properties. Some yes, some no. It all depends on how the survey comes out. That was why we wanted that included in there, just for you to see, so you could have that part of the discussion.
Okay.
We're not gonna be coming in and taking large swaths of land, but, just like any street around, it does end up on some pieces of property.
Right. Okay, all right. Is that, if they do take some land, do they deduct that from what we are paying taxes on, or how does that work? Or it's just gone, or?
We have an easement, you
Yeah.
still would have the property, we would have an easement to be able to do the work on there.
I understand
So I
that
don't,
part.
I don't think it would affect taxes one way or the other, unless, I don't believe it would affect anything one way or the other. I mean, I can certainly look into that question for you, but I don't believe it would,
Okay.
either side.
Either side, yeah.
But I'll put that on the list of questions, though.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to the ownership or maintenance of Pickerel Pond Road?
I'm sorry to do this. That question just about the easement. The road is in the town of Laconia. Do you have already any road that you're maintaining? Is there a 15-foot buffer on each side that you can't build on or build up to that point? Or is that something I just thought?
No,
No.
that's not,
I thought all roads,
no, and the Public Works Director can hit me if I'm saying this wrong, but it actually isn't as definable as you think it is for easements with the road and easements for onto property, so, no, but that number is not, it's not like we have 15 feet on either side, that's not a number.
Somewhere in I've been selling real estate for 45 years, and I always thought that the towns had a 15-foot buffer. I've
No,
always said that to people. You
No.
don't own right out to the pavement.
Unless you have something different to, that's a,
There's 2 separate things in there.
Okay.
The first is, in the normal process.
Wes, would you step up to the mic so people can see you in the?
So in the normal process, a road is established to be so wide.
and then, excuse me, a right-of-way established to be so wide, and the road is someplace into it. It could be in the center, it could be left, or it could be right, it all depends upon it. So the right-of-way establishes the width of the area that the city has control of. So that's that piece. And then there's this zoning setback, and the zoning setback is based off your property line. And that's established underneath the zoning codes, which I think for the frontage is 25 feet. I'm not 100% sure of that,
Is
but.
it 25 feet from the center line of
No,
the road?
the zoning is 25
Oh, okay.
feet from property boundary.
Gotcha.
And the right-of-way on the, we'll just take North Main Street. The right-of-way is established, and then the property boundary is the edge of the right-of-way and the property for the lot. So it's 25 feet from that location.
If we all vote and say we agree to the road going to a public road, I guess that's what we're trying to lead up to, is to see if everybody's agreeable to it. Is that correct?
I think it's in the best interest of any city councilor, before he were to vote, is to have a good understanding of what the public thinks about the, what's in front of them.
So it's not a road where you're gonna have a yellow line down the middle or something. It's gonna still stay a pretty country road, or no? Or will it go to a different standard?
Can't say for certain, but I don't see this as turning into a class, what would that,
A public road's class 5.
it's a class 5 road,
So
so.
it's a class 5 anyway, so no matter if it's Union Ave or Pickerel Pond Road. Once you accept it, it's class 5. Then it's defined as whether you're gonna make it an arterial, a collector, or a residential. It really depends upon what you're intending for traffic to be on it.
It sounds like Pickerel Pond Road is primarily residential,
At this point, correct.
yes.
Thank you.
Just clarify that, if you would, because at this point, there's been no, that sort of leaves it out in the open as being subject to consideration. We're not considering anything other than a residential road.
Correct, yeah.
Not trying to create.
We're not trying to change anything, we're trying to, trying to get the road to a standard once we determine the ownership, and then have it at a standard, but nothing, we're not looking to do any changes. What,
Okay.
And could we just clarify for the public too, what an easement means? It doesn't mean that we, like, take control of the property. It means that we have a right to access the property to do the work on the road that we might need to do.
correct, I mean, that answers it right there, yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to close the public hearing on this matter at 7:39 PM. This matter may be taken up under unfinished business later on this evening. I'd like to move on to agenda item number 14. 14A is our Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. They may be here for a presentation. Welcome, come on up. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Henry Herndon, and I'm here on behalf of Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. Do I understand that we'll have a digital format for the presentation? Would that,
Did you bring a flash drive?
yeah, I could access it via email.
It's either that or it's in an email that I have that he can pull up, but I thought he had a flash drive.
Send an email?
I have it, it's in my email. I thought he had a flash drive, so.
Oh, apologies.
No, that's okay.
Why don't you send it to me?
Yeah, I'm gonna, what was the gentleman's name that sent it? Andrew, right?
Yeah, I don't think we will. be
Yeah,
making a
you could look
decision
up
on this.
Andrew Hatch.
Andrew Hatch or
Maybe
Henry
tell
Herndon.
them to not release them and let them hang around unnecessarily.
Perhaps this time I could.
Hold on one second. For the folks here on the Pickerel Pond ownership issue, I don't anticipate we'll be voting on anything determinative tonight. So, don't hang around just for that, all right? Thank you for coming.
Pass those around.
Yep.
Please. I had one more for you, but I don't see.
Me or Matt? Mark?
Mark.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sorry about the mix-up there.
Did you get my email, Glenn?
Still trying to get my email on this
Okay,
machine.
all right.
In the meantime, looks like we're having a little break, so happy to without the presentation as per.
Hold on one second, because I just had a couple people, there you go, Counselor Bogart, sorry. I just had two counselors step out, so I don't want them to miss anything. If you can bear with us just a moment.
Of course.
Thank you for your patience.
May I have to step away for 1 minute?
Steve, could I have one more of those?
Once you, once you tell me you got your email,
That's all right. No.
So it's a process of.
I wanna make sure you got it before I have to step away to do something, okay, I wanna make sure you got it.
Yep.
All right, so, there's two things in a PowerPoint presentation.
So that's what we're looking for.
I'm glad to hear that.
Katie, do you need a copy of this?
No.
Okay.
That was from Tony, I think.
Tony, okay. That's for Tony.
When Bruce comes back to his seat, we can just let it start.
Oh, okay.
Oh, actually, I can't go back there. No, never mind, I'll be ready. Welcome. Yeah, if you're ready, we're ready.
All right, very good. My name's Henry Herndon. I'm the Director of Member Services with Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. I'm here on behalf of the coalition to extend an invitation to the city of Laconia to join the nonprofit's membership. The coalition, or CPCNH, was established by New Hampshire cities, towns, and counties in 2021, and this spring, the coalition launched service for the state's first 12 community power programs in 12 cities and towns, and currently serves electricity to 75,000 electric customers and is generating considerable electric bill savings for the residents and businesses in participating towns. So I'm here to extend that invitation and to discuss what is community power, what is Laconia Community Power, how could it benefit the residents and businesses of the city, and answer any questions the city council may have about a potential program that has recently been authorized by the New Hampshire General Court under RSA 53E. So thank you for your time tonight, and I guess I'm curious, I don't want to take too much of the council's time. I know you have a full agenda. What would be appropriate in terms of this discussion? I could do sort of.
Let's assume that you've got the time that you need to walk us through this as if we've never heard of this before. And so,
Very good.
if you starts to get too long,
Very good. I can be succinct and I can, but hit all the key points, and I'm happy to have questions as I go. If folks want
That's
to
great.
interrupt me, jump in, and we can have a little bit of discussion, but we can use the slides as a little bit of a guide. So I'll just start with the high level. What is community power? As I mentioned, RSA 53E, passed by the General Court, allows cities, towns, and counties to become what's called the default electricity supplier for residents and businesses. There's sort of three pieces to these programs. Essentially, the first piece, a community can pool the purchasing power of all its electric accounts, achieve an economy of scale, and through that group purchasing power, lower rates for customers. This is not taking over the utility grid, your utility company, and perhaps it's both Eversource and Electric Co-op in the city. Correct me if I'm wrong. But regardless, the utility company, Eversource, or the electric co-op would continue to own the distribution grid, the poles and wires, deliver the power to the customers. That all remains exactly the same. The customer still gets the bill from the utility company, but the supply charge on the bill can be decreased through Laconia Community Power. And then the residents and businesses not only get a lower electric rate, but a greater menu of energy choices if they're interested in clean power or other innovative energy rates or options. So that's how the program would function. These are voluntary programs. No customer is ever required to participate. It is an opt-out program if you go through all of the approval processes. So customers would have to choose to go back to the utility default or Any customer who currently shops for power, some of us may buy power from a third-party electric supplier, those customers would be unaffected. So anyone who's already shopping of their own volition is not affected by this type of program. And then importantly, there are no taxpayer funds associated with these programs. They are funded, they're self-funded by the electric bill payments of participating customers. So when you pay your electric bill, half the bill goes to the utility company, half the bill pays for supply. Was there a question?
Oh, go ahead, I'll wait till
Go ahead.
you're done.
If you've got something pertinent, go ahead.
You said it's self-funded. I read in here they got $9 million. All right, what is that money used for?
So you're referring to the reserve fund, and
Yes.
I'd be happy to discuss that a little bit. So the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire is a nonprofit. It's a public agency, so it's subject to right to know. Its books are public. This year, through the service of electricity to 75,000 electric customers, it has adopted a budget of $51 million approximately. The vast majority of that budget, say $40 million, is paying for the cost of energy supply, a couple $1 million for the operations of the organization. The remainder is deposited into financial reserves that are controlled by the community members, the cities and towns that are members of the organization. And the reason for the financial reserve is to ensure long-term benefit for customers. It's a matter of risk management. It's a matter of filling up financial reserves so in the event that electricity markets change in the future, you can draw down those reserves to keep your electric rates low over time. You have that sort of cushion to protect against future rate spikes. That's the primary reason for the reserves. There are other reasons and other benefits that come from it as well in terms of enabling energy projects for cities and towns that would want to finance their own sources of generation.
Also, you said this is a public company, so that all the financials are available through the public?
That's right.
Okay, are there any towns or cities that have turned you down?
There are currently 38 members. 12 of those members have launched programs and gone through all the approvals. There's an additional dozen that have gone to their town meeting or their city council for approval, or are in the process of signing the final contracts to launch their programs this coming March, April. And then there's another group that maybe you're in the group of that might go to town meeting this coming March or city council sometime in 2024. So of that membership, not all of them are currently taking service, but of the ones that are launched, they've all gone through the whole process.
Right, but answer my question. Have there any cities or towns that have said no?
So there are cities and towns that take this service from another provider. There are brokers in the marketplace that provide a similar service in some ways, and those are an option available to this. So there are cities and towns that have chosen a different provider for the program. I don't know exactly what you mean by have said no.
Said no to your
Yes, so I'd say
broker?
So I wouldn't describe the coalition as a broker. No, it's a power supply company. It's a power supply nonprofit, which is different from a broker. A broker is a middleman that will sit in between you and the supplier and broker the deal, and you buy the energy from a private third party. This model sort of cuts out that middleman and instead creates a supplier that is governed by the member cities and towns, that is accountable to those cities and towns.
I have no doubt that every member of this council, and probably most of the members of the audience, have received letters in the mail from different potential suppliers offering you great deals on electricity.
Yes.
What's the difference between you and them?
That's a great question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, there'll be the last one.
No, it's a good question. So we may have received in the ENH Power, for example, cheap rates for electricity. Sign up now. Customer signs up. After the 6-month intro teaser period, maybe that rate spikes into the future. Customer forgets about their electric bill. All of a sudden, that electric bill is ratcheting up. So this is currently this is one example. It's not always the case. Many customers are sophisticated and are benefiting from shopping for electricity, particularly large customers, commercial and industrial customers. They don't just take the Eversource power. They go and shop for options, and they can get discounts, and that's a benefit. So this competitive market is a benefit to those customers. What Community Power's intention is, and what the legislature's intention is to expand those benefits of choice in the competitive market that are available to large energy users, expand those to the residential class, so in bulk, the residents can benefit from the same services. So there's third-party suppliers. It's often a good deal, especially if you're a sophisticated customer or a large customer. Sometimes on the residential side, the results have not been great because there's occasionally a fly-by-night type company that'll have the teaser rate and jack up the rates. So we're similar in that we are in that competitive marketplace for electricity. We're different in that we're transparent and accountable to the member cities and towns and really created by the cities and towns that are the members.
Thank you.
Counselor Bogart. What would be your kilowatt rate at the moment?
I think I have
Your
that.
members,
So I've had that on the, well, I'm not sure the slides are, oh, they are sharing again. So for the folks in the audience, they can see Eversource currently charges 12.58 cents, 12.6 cents. The coalition's basic rate is 10.9 cents. So it's a 10-12% supply rate savings. And then we could go back to the previous rate period where there was a considerable savings when Eversource was at all-time highs at 20 cents and the coalition was at 15.8. And one of the benefits, Laconia is in a good position because you'll get to see the track record over time. Already you have 2 points of reference, the 2 rate periods I just mentioned, and then come February 1, new rates will go into effect for Eversource Supply and the coalition.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Go right ahead.
What is the lock-in time on a rate period, or what is the rate period that it stays locked in before it changes?
This would depend on who your provider is.
You.
If you're us, we adjust rates on a 6-month cycle with the utility rates so we can maintain a discount as utility rates fluctuate up and down. They run February through July, they run August through January.
Okay.
6-month cycles, so we adjust on that cycle. The other option that you may consider as a city council are brokers, and they typically lock in a rate for a 2.5-3-year period.
So there's sort of two things. I think I recently observed that I'm not sure I'm getting his title correctly, but there's a consumer watchdog that's
Consumer advocate
for the state of New Hampshire with respect to when utilities come before the PUC to get rate adjustments, right? That they sort of represent the public. And just in terms of what I observed in the conversation was that, speaking of this coalition, is that he suspected over the long run that it would be successful as you're kind of representing it. I guess the discussion didn't sort of cover sort of the risks associated with, you know, what the position is. Can you identify? Obviously, the upside is you're aggregating individuals with a transparent company. It's sort of, in my mind, it's sort of like a mutual savings bank, the old type of bank where things were a lot more, if you will, run for the benefit of the depositors, if you will, or a mutual fund that has that same kind of charter, if you will. A lot of those have gone away in our world. But that being said, in terms of you're locking in a price, what is the risk that you wouldn't be able to deliver at, say, the 10 to 12% discount and on the rate, and what is the risk, if any, with respect to Laconia has a major storm and the infrastructure is affected? Who shows up to make things right?
So to your second question first, Eversource or the electric co-op or whoever your electric distribution utility is will always be responsible for storms and outages in the grid and keeping that up and running. There's no financial harm to them through these programs. They're indifferent to where the supply is coming from because they're just passing through a supply cost. All their revenue is on the delivery on the poles and wires side. So no change in grid reliability. That will remain the job of the utility company. In terms of risks, there's a couple of things I would respond to. So for the customer, they have assurance that at launch, the rate will beat the utility rate. That you can write into your authorizing plan. There is not a guarantee that 100% of the time for infinity into the future, the rate will always beat the utility rate. But we do have what I'll describe as a structural advantage how utilities buy power. So the reason that Community Power Coalition New Hampshire, or actually in fact the electric co-op, or any competitive supply company can deliver savings relative to the utility companies is because utilities have added regulated costs. They're required by the state to have a very rigid power buying method. Twice a year, in June and December, they put out a bid for the market and they lock in 6 months of power. And they do it on a clock, and that's all they can do. And during the year, they have no flexibility to engage in power markets, which is different from what the coalition or the co-op or competitive suppliers do, which we can actively and freely, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, manage a portfolio like you described of different power contracts in the market. That is a source of savings for the customer. So that's why we have high confidence that over time we can outcompete them. That's why we have demonstrated so far savings. That being said, for a customer, the customer can leave the program at any time on a monthly basis. So they're protected from risk by the opt-out and being able to go back to the utility or shop from whoever else.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
No.
I'm sorry that I just.
No,
the wrong-
no.
You don't learn?
No.
But what if,
No. This is not a question and answer period for someone doing a presentation. Thank you.
The other,
what if the customer?
No.
the other
Hmm?
the other aspect of the risk question, so for the city, before you is tonight is an invitation to become a member of the coalition. A city does that by voting to adopt a legal contract, a joint powers agreement, which is an agreement among and between the now 38 cities, towns, and counties. It's the corporate charter of the nonprofit, it's the bylaws, it says we'll have a board, we'll have committees, this is our structure, and it has the details of that. It also has a limitation on liability for the cities, and it protects the member cities and towns from any liabilities of the nonprofit. So any contracts that are entered into by the coalition, according to the joint powers agreement, are non-recourse to the taxpayer funds of the members. So there can never be a flow through of those liabilities to the member towns. So there's a protection to the membership from liabilities of the coalition. And there's another protection for customers that already shop for power. If they have a competitive supply deal, they are not affected, they're not enrolled, they may continue to have that supply deal. I'm gonna just try to hit some of the key points so especially folks in the audience can understand. So this is an Eversource bill, and it's divided into a blue portion that is the supply portion and the green portion, which is delivery. Delivery is what Eversource does, is the poles and wires, it's how Eversource makes their money. Supply is the portion of the bill that we're talking about. So from a customer perspective, if you go through the approval processes, after the customer is notified with the letter in the mail, the bill would appear the same, but under the supply line item, it would say Laconia Community Power with the discounted supply rate there. Before that, and maybe we should reverse the order of these slides, but before that there would be a customer notification and enrollment. So taking a step back, there's a multifaceted public process. The city would have to appoint a committee to develop a plan, hold public hearings on that plan, and only then the city council could adopt the Laconia Community Power Plan and have the authority to implement a program. After you've done that, you can enter into service agreements or contracts. If you choose to enter into contracts, what would occur is every customer in town would receive a letter in the mail. Every electric account, it would say, welcome to Laconia Community Power. Here's the Laconia Community Power rate. Here's the Eversource rate. Here's how they compare. Here's your savings. You may opt out by calling this phone number, using this email address, going to this website. You have there a 30-day period prior to the start of service. After that 30-day period, the next time the utility reads the customer meter on a monthly basis, they would be switched into the Laconia Community Power unless they chose to opt out or if they already had a third-party supply company. And then at any point in time thereafter, on a monthly basis, customers can come and go as they please. So it's the new default supply. Right now there is an existing default. It's the Eversource default. This is just an additional option in addition to that Eversource default.
How many times can a customer potentially opt in or opt out? Go back, can they flip back and forth on a regular basis?
Freely without charge.
Okay, good, thank you.
Can you clarify, it's an opt-out, you have to opt out each month is your protocol?
When a customer submits an opt-out by phone, website, or email, that is processed and made effective on a monthly basis, as the utility company reads the meter on a monthly basis, and and bills the customer on a monthly basis, and the request is processed on a monthly basis.
But my quick,
No, sir, this is not an opportunity for public input. You'll have ample opportunity, if not tonight, in the coming weeks.
I'll apologize once time.
Go ahead.
so I'm just trying to understand from the consumer standpoint, if I don't want to participate in this program, I opt out, let's say we were participating.
Then you're out for good until you make another decision.
Okay.
One last question, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, of course.
I know that you said earlier the rates usually about 10 to 12% below what Eversource is, what you showed here. Does that ever change, or do you follow that same graph?
So the programs have been live since May of this year, and May, June, July, it was a 20 to 40% savings, and that was an extraordinary circumstance because we had extraordinarily high electric prices for Eversource. We were able to come to the market and deliver much more savings than a typical time period. Now we're at the 10%, 12%. That's probably closer to typical, but these programs have been live May, June, July, August. It's 5 months.
Okay. Do you think it would never, you don't believe it would be above, or in other words, flip?
Can't guarantee it.
It's not guaranteed, but because of our advantage in how we procure power versus the regulated costs paid by utilities, we have high confidence.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
So I'm just thinking if there's other key points. I'll move through to we talked about the rates, but one of the pieces is the options. So right now the coalition is also offering 10% more renewables, or 50% renewable energy, or 100% renewable energy on an optional basis. So any customer, they would automatically be switched into the cheapest Granite Basic minimum renewable energy option, but they could, if they were so inclined, choose from a greener product. That's an optional thing. There are some cities and towns, just 3 right now in the coalition membership, that have used the 10% more renewables as the default. So the town of Hanover has offered a 33% default product. There's a small premium, and customers could opt down to Granite Basic. Most towns choose the cheaper product for the default. This next image, I'm on slide 6, is just showing a map of the membership, and it's slightly dated as the coalition has been growing. Somersworth was a recent addition to the membership along with a couple of other towns, but again, this is a community-governed nonprofit. Its mission is to foster resilient New Hampshire communities by empowering them to realize their energy goals. There are 38 members.
Can you talk about the membership a little bit? If the city of Laconia were to opt in, decide they want to go forward with something like this, how would we be represented at the coalition?
Great question. So the membership elects the board of directors, and they elect a board of 20 from among the 38 plus members. Any member, so the city, if you were to join, would assign or appoint an individual, a member representative. That person's responsibility, at a minimum, would be attend the annual membership meeting, vote in the election of the board. So from among all those members, we elect a governing board. There's sort of, from there it could go up if that individual were so inclined to participate in governance. You could sit on one of our committees, executive committee, finance, energy risk management, overseeing how we buy power, member outreach, regulatory, legislative affairs. So we have committees that oversee these aspects of what the coalition is involved in, and those are staffed by folks on city councils, folks on energy committees, folks on select boards, or staff as well sometimes. So that's sort of the oversight governance layer. So the city could have a member representative participate in a committee. They could stand for an election on the board. You're not automatically seated on the board. It is a representative board.
Thank you.
We talked about the again, so one of the differences here is in a typical competitive supply arrangement, you're just purchasing power from a supplier. In this arrangement, the supplier is, its books are open to its members control its books, control its revenues. So we talked a little bit about that net margin or those net revenues, depositing reserve funds for future benefit for customers. And we have policies governing how those reserves can be used and setting targets. So we'll accrue, we'll become financially stable, accrue reserves over time until we meet our target. And then that's less money that actually there's more money that can go to the customer discount. One way to think about this is when the rates are set, they're set by our board, elected by the members, and the board has this trade-off decision that says, how much of our value can we give to the customer in a rate discount right now, and how much do we have to put into the reserve fund so we'll have future benefit? So this is a trade-off that the board is making as a decision. The next slide, I'll just be brief here, but sort of illustratively talking about the change here is really the recycling of the revenue into the community, what I just described. Normally with a broker or a legacy model, you have the community is purchasing electricity, the profit is flowing to the private suppliers, electricity is flowing to the customers, whereas under this model you have communities purchasing electricity, the market is supplying electricity, but then that revenue is flowing back into community control through the reserve, through the coalition. Again, governed by city councilors and select board members and folks from across the state, similar to yourselves, with a lot of whom have expertise in the power sector. And then we have a professional staff team. Our CEO, Brian Callanan, was previously the vice president of power supply at New Hampshire Electric Co-op. We're very glad to have him. And we're actually hiring our senior leadership staff team right now. And there's a number of service providers, professional service providers for the organization in the areas of legal, energy procurement, customer service, contact center, etc.
Mr. Mayor? Thank you. What is the percent of overhead cost relation to the rate of kilowatt hour?
It's less than 4%, and that number will go down over time as the load grows. So yeah, less than 4% of the $51 million budget.
Can you, the specific IRS, are you a 501c3, 501c something other?
Yeah.
What are you?
So it is both a 501c4 nonprofit, and it is a joint powers agency or a governmental instrumentality. We are a creature of New Hampshire municipal governments. We are created by them and under a specific law, RSA 53A, which is about municipal governments entering into agreements to share their authorities. So it's both a nonprofit and government.
And on that same thing, in terms of the governance and, you're holding on to significant reserves, what insurances, do you, like, for example, participate in, what's the one we use for our insurance? Do you purchase your insurance through, like, a Primex?
Through Primex, yes.
Yeah. And do you have protections against, you're holding on to some significant cash reserves. What type of protections do you have on those reserves, and how are they invested and protected?
I may take this as a follow-up question. I know our insurance policy certificate is on our website, but I don't know the exact answer to your question at present. So maybe I'll circle back on details of our insurance policy.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna make a note.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question for the city manager.
Yes.
Can we get copies of his presentation?
Yes, I have it on an email. I can email that out to you.
Thank you very much.
I'll try to, I think there's a few other key points, but I'll mention the collective
Go ahead.
membership. Sorry.
Just in terms of regulation as the power, how did you describe it?
The coalition?
No, you're governed for the nonprofit status through normal ways that those are governed, but the power, how did you describe it? Used where's the power side of your company?
So we have a risk management policy, an energy portfolio
Are-
risk
Are
management.
you regulated by the PUC
We
as
are
well?
not. So there,
Who regulates the power purchasing side of things?
right, a good question. So we're not regulated by the PUC in how we procure power. There are administrative rules through the Public Utility Commission that govern how utility companies exchange data with us. We have to receive all the customer account data, billing information, bill customers through the utilities. So there's a data exchange with utilities that we are regulated under. We're not regulated in how we buy power. So we participate in what's called the ISO New England wholesale power market, just like any other generator or supplier or utility company that's registered in that marketplace. We actually have a service provider, Calpine, that is our market participant. And over the coming years, 2-3 years, we will shift from outsourcing that service to self-registering in the power market. Our procurement is regulated by our energy risk management policy and our regulations that we have adopted as a board. We have a committee that oversees our procurement, oversees our risk management. There are details about we can't be exposed to the real time or the spot market for power. We have to be fully hedged going into a month. We have to lock up our power contracts for 100% of next month's power or the next 6-month period. So there's details that we impose on ourselves to protect ourselves from any risk associated with volatility in the market.
And are those, in certain industries, there's sort of like a commission or a, or governing body that sort of say, here are best practices. Is there something that, along those lines that you're following?
We had very good consultants and service providers during startup who had a lot of decades of experience setting up these agencies. So we had that, and now currently we have a firm called Ascend Analytics that is an energy risk management firm that provides service to major utilities all around the country, and they help them, build their procurement, their portfolios like a mutual fund. Watch the market, put out solicitations, choose the lowest bidder. So there's a firm, Ascend Analytics. They are overseen by our risk management committee. We're currently hiring for a director of load and power resources. And then all of that is ultimately overseen by the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just this, in the April through December time period, customers in the 75,000 customers will benefit from a $10 million in collective savings, and there's an additional 7 to 9 million, let's say, by end of year accrued in reserve. So we think of the value again as how much is the customer saving today and how much is accruing in reserve combined.
Is that measured against the Eversource rate? Is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah, so the customer savings, that $10 million is for those customers, whether we serve customers that have Eversource, Unitil, Liberty, the different utilities around the state. That $10 million in bill savings is relative to their utility supply rate, what they would have paid to that utility company.
Counselor Bogart.
Thank you, Mayor. So when you do PPAs, do you do those with something like Next Gen Power Corporation and stuff? Would you send and ask for them to provide a quote or something along those lines for those 6 months basis? Or how does that function?
Essentially, yes, but it is not a retail contract, it is a wholesale power contract.
Right.
So we'll put out a request for offers, and our Ascend will say, we know that these 7 firms that sell power, we think they'll respond. And it could be NextEra, it could be whoever the 7 sellers of power are. And they say, please authorize us to put out a bid, and we'll have a ceiling price of $80 a megawatt hour on that, and other parameters. And we'll deliberate that in our committee, and then we'll authorize them, and they'll go out and put the bid out, and they'll pick the lowest bidder, and we'll buy blocks of on-peak power and off-peak power, and we won't just have one contract. We will actually have, a block of power for the next 3 months, and then a block of power for this 9-month period, and for a 6-month period, and we're building out the portfolio as we speak over time, and it's sort of a laddered or layered portfolio of different contracts.
Thank you.
The other, one final thing I'll just reference is, there are options, there are brokers, and one of the differences is that you want to lock in a 3-year rate, or do you want to be able to adjust your rate as utility rates change? And there's arguments on both sides, because there's good things about certainty and knowing what your price of power will be for 3 years, but there is a risk there that maybe you lock in a rate at, let's say, 12 cents right now, which looked really good when Eversource had 20 cents a couple months ago. Now Eversource is about 12.5 cents, and maybe in 6 months from now, Eversource will be down at 10 cents, and you could be stuck in that fixed 3-year rate. So that's a risk, that's a trade-off if you take a broker model approach, which is again different from we're managing the portfolio and our board is changing the rate to maintain the discount on a 6-month basis. So I'm just going to talk about the implementation steps and then the joint powers agreement, and then I'll wrap up. There's essentially 3 steps. One
question. Do you have like insurance policies to protect against locking in at the wrong rate? And is that another, if you will, cost of doing business for the?
So there's a number of ways we could do that, and one of them is the reserve. So the purpose of the reserve is we build it up so that is our insurance policy, and then we draw down the reserve if the prices change. Another is through credit. So we have credit through our service provider, Calpine, right now, and we want to obtain our own line of credit to lower our financing costs. I don't believe we're currently insured against that presently. The insurance really is the reserve and credit support.
Thank you.
So 3 steps. The first would be to join the coalition. That's by city council vote to adopt the joint powers agreement. There are no membership fees or costs other than the time of the individual appointed as a member rep to be sort of the liaison with our coalition. By joining the coalition, you gain access to all the other cities and towns and the peer resources and the expert professional resources to go through your approval process. There's no commitment to launching service or anything like that. It's just a sort of foot in the door with the coalition. The second step is the establishment of a committee, Community Power Committee or Electric Aggregation Committee. This is laid out in the RSA, and the RSA says a city or town must create a committee. That committee will develop a plan. We will provide that template for you that's been proven out and approved by the regulators numerous times. So it's sort of a turnkey plan that you can customize for your specific needs. And then the city must hold at least 2 public hearings on that plan. After the plan has had 2 public hearings, the city council may vote to adopt that plan. Now you have the authority to launch a program, to sign service contracts, although you're not required to at that point either. But that's sort of so step 2 is committee develops plan and city council adopts the plan after hearings. And then the 3rd step would be the service agreements. So timeline-wise, this fall, this winter, the committee could do its work, and sometime in the year 2024, the program could come online if that was a timeline that was attractive to the city council. And there will be this public process, and there will be details, so that the council will have to review that plan and vote on it. Then the council will have to review contracts and service agreements. My phone thinks I'm talking. So those are the other steps that would occur over the coming 6 months, 12 months perhaps. In terms of the joint powers agreement, I already discussed this. The main points are the liability shield, and by adopting this agreement, the council is not locked into any course of action, and you can terminate and withdraw your membership at any point in time. It's the contracting period at which the commitment to launch service occurs. And I think that's the end of what I wanted to state, and happy to have other questions.
Any other questions?
Just one, please. Clarification on the RSA that y'all were formed under and operate under?
Yes, so RSA 53E is what we call the Community Power Act, or electric aggregation. Separately, RSA 53A is agreements among and between municipal governments. So those are the 2.
Thank you.
And the administrative rules of the PUC for that component?
That's PUC 2200 rules, 2200. That's on our website. All of these documents are at cpcnh.org/about. there's a key documents section that has the joint powers agreement, the service contracts, the policies on financial reserves and risk management, and the RSA and the administrative rules. So there's a lot of documentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Presentation.
Yep.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 15 of the mayor's report. I'll keep it very brief tonight. I hope all of you had an opportunity to go downtown for a multicultural day this weekend. It was an exceptional event, as it always is. It was great to have the Wolves there carrying flags. Thank you, Mark. Councilor Haynes, and certainly a shout out to Becky Geyer and her team who have once again put on an event that the city can be particularly proud of. And it was exceptionally well attended, and I think one indication of how successful it was is the number of food vendors that sold out, which was a very good sign. So great music, great community get together, and really a nice time to be particularly proud of our city. Moving on to agenda item number 16, council comments.
Just one quickly. Just Mayor Councilor Felt should be also thanked. He was very instrumental in putting the flag parade together.
Yes, terrific. Any other council comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, I was reading the Laconia Sun, and I saw there's a large, might have been earlier, last week, large article concerning Pumpkin Fest. And there was discussion in there, unless I read wrong, and if there's anybody here, that the tower that we usually see in the middle of Veterans Square is not gonna be erected this year and done nothing, which I find very disturbing, because to me, that's a real draw to everybody to come to Laconia and see all that. And the reason was because there was not enough funds to take care of it. I believe the city council authorized us to spend up to $10,000 to support Pumpkin Fest. And if possible, I'd like to see that earmarked to have the Chamber of Commerce build that item, because, I mean, the main purpose of Pumpkin Fest is to draw people to Laconia, have a good time. They're gonna spend their monies, do whatever they wish. And I think the first year we had that large tower really brought a lot of people, and I'd like to see it back there again. And if we could earmark to that, to allow the Chamber of Commerce to build that, I think it would be a good thing. I'd be very disappointed if it wasn't. I mean, I think there's already, as we've heard in the last couple of years, if you read the news, rumblings that, you know, other cities or towns might want to be looking at this festival, you might say. And I think we should put our best foot forward.
Kirk, can
Thank
you
you.
talk about the budget
Yep, so
allocation?
we, you all allocated $10,000 towards Pumpkin Fest. I had been in conversations with their director. We hadn't earmarked exactly how or whether that money would be used. Certainly, in conversations that I had with you and others since then, I can bring it back out to her to say, you know, was that gonna make a difference? And is that going to, that the council would like to see something go that direction? So,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, and I'm not sure if we can, I see Mr. Clement is here from the Downtown Association area, and I know that he's very word-wise when it comes to that.
My
so.
concern on this is earmarking it solely for one aspect of Pumpkin Fest. Is that, how much does that increase our overall allocation for Pumpkin Fest by the city? I mean, you could
No,
dedicate it just to the,
I don't know if it's increasing it, because we already allocated $10,000.
yeah, but if we're saying it should only be for a tower, when actually it's been allocated for something different.
Hauling away all the pumpkins at the end as an example.
Yeah, I mean, we've got all sorts of expenses as far as dumpsters and barriers and DPW expenses to clean up afterwards, so I just want to be cautious of that.
My main concern was to promote the city, I'm sorry, and as much as possible, and to bring more people here, and I think that was one of the drivers, or to bring people towards the downtown area. and
It
see
is, but
this.
I
That's
think if your request right now is we've committed $10,000 to Pumpkin Fest, which is entirely appropriate, and certainly I support it. If your request is to conditionally allocate another $10,000 just for the pumpkin tower, then that would be something completely different, but that you can bring forward if you like. I just want to be cautious with that. that's
Right,
all.
I would be very cautious with that. I'm not sure the council would really look at that, okay, as being fully supportive. I haven't brought it to any other council member about that.
Could I suggest that the manager talk with those folks and find out what it might cost? Might make it easier. They've done it before, so they ought to have some idea. He can bring that back, and then we can make a decision.
Okay, because I think in the paper, they said they started a GoFundMe account, and it came up with like they were about $1,800, and they were short a little over $8,000. I'm just going by, I don't have a paper here in front of me, so that's hard for me to say.
My recollection was 15,000 to take care of the, of putting it up, and we had 1,800 towards it.
Okay, I thought it was 10, Harry. I guess I'm not gonna go much further.
Well, I think, yeah, okay.
I'll still talk to her and have the conversation with how that money can best be used to promote what we're doing, and I'll bring that
Well,
question at least
by
up.
the time we have another meeting.
Yeah, but I can talk, that's the, you know, how that money gets allocated. You've already said to spend it on Pumpkin Fest, and I can work with her to just, you know, how
Figure out
that's
the
gonna be
best
best
way.
appropriate, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other council comments? How about committee reports? What about liaison reports?
Just quickly, Mayor.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, the Board of Directors of LRPA voted to move, and everything is, as we speak, moving forward, and they were happy with the whole situation, so that has been resolved with the high school.
Thank you. What is the timeframe for that, do you know?
They're looking for late November, December.
Okay.
And I think some of it's gonna be technical as far as moving some of the wiring and that kind of stuff. But it should be in that time frame.
All right. Any other liaison reports? Seeing none. Moving on to agenda item number 19, citizens' request to comment on current agenda items. Anyone would like to speak to a current agenda item, now would be the appropriate time.
The gentleman who wanted to speak.
Sure, you step right up, introduce yourself.
I have one question for the board. When it comes down to,
Hold on, wait, step right up to the microphone, introduce yourself, and let us know where you live.
Daryl Aaron Twodowski. I'm currently homeless here in Laconia, New Hampshire. Pay for registration access and pay my taxes yearly, and I do work for this city. Of course, I come from a generation of families well beyond belief, from the city of Nashua to everything else that currently supports and works very hard for the city, from Gilbert Block all the way through to Cormier, all the way through Pike Industries.
So would you like to speak to a matter that's currently on tonight's agenda?
If there was a project that could be at hand and we could maybe make a universal decision, if everybody's willing to work together, I think that maybe we come to a resolution pretty quickly that you guys have already been working on, but I think that we should utilize the resources that are available. And I know that we have a serious population control issue out here, but we could put people to work,
So
give
this
them
is
an
the,
opportunity.
I don't want to be rude to you, but this is comments to current agenda items.
Right, current
I don't think
agenda,
I don't think this is an agenda item this evening. I'll give you a little more flexibility to make your point, but
What I would suggest to the board, and I know that there's a lot going on with everything. I think that if we could just focus the resources back here, because Laconia is a standpoint, and it always has been in this state. We are the second largest population, and it's growing extravagantly. Originally, Nashua and then Manchester, but we're growing outside of control. So I think that we should work on that issue.
Thank you. I appreciate your input, and I appreciate you taking
all
the
of you
time to
and everybody
talk
here.
to us. Thank you.
Very much so.
Thank you very much.
For your time.
Anyone else like to make any comments to current agenda items?
Rich
Welcome.
McNeil, 47 Rolling Lane here in Laconia. I just want to speak a little bit on the Community Power Coalition.
Sure.
I'm a 37-year utility veteran, so I lived through deregulation, and I don't know if many of you remember that. So prior to Governor Steve Merrill in 1995, deregulation was initiated. Before that, the PUC had total control over all power costs. Deregulation kicked in, it was signed into by Governor Shaheen. At that point, it took all control away from the PUC. It's an open, unregulated market now. And that's why we have the issue we have. It's a pass-through cost for Eversource on your electric bill. When they buy power, they just go to the ISO New England auction, much like the gentleman spoke, at a 6-month interval, and they buy that power. And they're locked in at that rate for 6 months. And that's with no PUC oversight. That's part of the issue we have. With the aggregator like they are, I think is a win-win for Laconia. So I'd just like to say that. And on the other side of the house, as a former utility guy, when a storm comes, it doesn't matter who the supplier is. It's Eversource's poles and wires, and they put them back. So that's, you know, as a guy who formerly, was heavily involved in storm damage, we never see who the supplier is. It's Eversource's poles and wires.
Terrific. Thank you for taking
Yeah,
the time
and if I
to
can
speak.
help with any, I'm also on the planning board, if I can help with input toward this, feel free.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Let's get his name and number.
We got it.
I got it.
Moving on to agenda item number 20, which is the city manager's report.
All right, thank you. So, in your packet, you have the financial operational trends for September. Really for the first time in a while, I'll report out that the building permit numbers are down.
Number wrong
It,
because.
no, it's not. I had them double check. It is not wrong. It's just been a slow, it's just been slow the last month or so.
This is
With building
5 months
permits.
into the year, right?
Correct.
And we've only gotten, a year ago, we're
How
only.
about we let him finish it first, Counselor Susie, and then we can double back and you can
Okay,
ask your
'cause
questions,
it
okay?
Seems weird.
But yes, just to kind of move on, the numbers are down. That is a correct number. We had them go back and double check to see where we were. Fire rescue calls are relatively normal. You'll notice in the public assistance data, we had a very large month with what we spent out on. As a reminder, I say this every time we see a number go up, that you did increase the city relief in this year's current fiscal year budget. So it does give us a little bit more room to work, which is certainly well received. Our total number of clients are up. We had 19 come forward last month. In the last 2 months combined prior to that, we had a total of 19. So large numbers. Our cost per voucher has increased, as have probably the biggest piece that we're facing is our number of long-term placements are up as well. And really you start adding all those in and you see where we stand. 11 days into the month certainly is hard to predict for what September looks like, but we are seeing a little bit calmer waters this month, but we still have 2/3 of the month left, so there's no guarantees on what this will look like next month. Police numbers are relatively unchanged with anything major. Our property tax collection is where it should be. Motor vehicle registration, looks fine. Overtime numbers on the next page are actually, probably the most under control we've seen in quite a while. Again, a lot of it, I say it every time, the more we have full staffing, the more, the less we see in these, and that's what we're seeing this month. Parks and Rec, a little bit down from what they usually are this time of year for the first couple of months, but their facilities are being used. Impact fee numbers are as they are in front of you, and as we've talked about, and as we'll see coming up on a couple different occasions tonight, we are trying to access those more and use those, so it's been certainly a positive to us. The expendable trust balances and the TIF money has relatively unchanged. Second page, the last page, you have some of the code statistics, and we're trying to do a little bit better that in what we present to you. You'll see this year compared. this year compared to last year. The total overall inspections are about the same. Short-term rentals,
Your question on that.
yeah, on this, oh, sorry. We're continuing to inspect those.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay, that's okay. General fund revenues and expenditures are, there's nothing to, be concerned about in there. And the incorrect month, they did not have the updated month, so the EMS billing is not, something new for this month to talk about. And if I can help you with a question.
Yeah, going back to Counselor Susi's concern here, and pointed out by Counselor Littman, if we go back to financial and operational trends from August 2023, April 1st to July 31st, the current year for the permits was $23,772,000. So when we go to this year, when we go to this month,
Adding one more month.
adding an additional month, we're at $3 million.
I had them, no, that's fine. It's,
Oh, that's
I will
not
go-
fine.
No,
That's
I'll
not
go
good.
back and check. There was,
There is a discrepancy there.
yep, and we can,
I think what they did is this is the month, not the aggregate.
this is, yes. I think that's exactly what they
That's what
pull off, was this month and not
Could be.
an aggregate, and I will get that correction for you.
Yeah.
All
there's
3
some-
months line up like that?
Yeah, all 3 months line up. So at some point, to
Yep,
follow up,
we'll get that looked
get that
into.
out to us if you would.
Absolutely will.
Corrections made. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's
Thank
okay.
you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if I may,
sure.
going over to the police department, stops this year versus corresponding month last year, there's a significant reduction in stops. And based on the emails that I'm getting of intersections and speeding through neighborhoods and stuff, I'm just curious how
Yeah,
we should address.
Yeah, I can reach out to the chief. I know we have had conversations about this in the past, and I don't want to speak for Council Cheney, but I believe he's mentioned it to him as well for conversation purposes, and so we will, I can get a follow-up answer to that for you.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor, unless there's more questions.
Any questions, any further questions for the city manager? Seeing none, move on to agenda item 21, which is new business, item 21A. This is a request to use impact fees to fund the plumbing portion of the family restroom project at the library. The Laconia Public Library is requesting the use of impact fees in the amount of $3,290 to be used for the plumbing portion of the library's family restroom project. This project will ensure the hot water needs in the family restroom are met. Funds are available within the library's impact fee allocations to offset this project. The library is requesting use of said funds. Approval of this request will reduce the amount of impact fee funds available to the library by $3,290, leaving a balance of $15,053.17. City manager has recommended allocating these impact fees as proposed. So, right now, I'd be looking for a motion right now to move to approve the use of impact fees to fund the plumbing portion of the family restroom project at the library as proposed. So made by Counselor Bogert, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you for your patience. Item number 21B, request to approve the expenditure of not more than $190,000 from the Lakes Business Park Phase 2 Capital Replacement Trust Fund for the resurfacing of Hounslow Avenue in the town of Guilford. Kirk, would you like to walk us through this, please?
The Lakes Business Park has a capital reserve account We are gonna be paving, a section of our Hounslow Lab that's in Laconia. Guilford said, well, can we also do the piece that's in Lakes Business Park? Their capital reserve funds have, just under 900,000 or just over 850,000 in the account. They would like to take and use that money to finish Hounslow Lab in paving. By the rules of how it works, their council, select board would vote to approve this, and then it comes to you or vice versa. Both boards vote and they can, expend the money out of this. They've requested no more than, $190,000 to complete this project.
So the current balance in this fund, and this is the town of Guilford's funds, correct?
It is the capital reserve account for the
Capital
Lakes
reserve account
Business
is
Park.
$858,029.77 in there. From that, so we would reduce that by $190,000 to complete the paving project, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And their board has already, the select board from Guilford has approved this on their end.
okay.
And this way we get a completely paved road instead of a
It's
half
not
paved
having
road.
that.
Beautiful. So, right, yes, Counselor Bogert.
In understanding what was just said, the city is gonna pay for the paving of our side, and then Guilford's gonna take it, their money responsibility out of this fund.
Correct.
Ours comes out of our general, and this comes out of the fund.
It's how the business park is, where the business park begins
Y-
versus
it's
where the
the-
city
right,
of
it's-
Laconia roads
Right.
begin. So that when you drive all the way through Hounslow Ave, there's a piece that belongs to the city alone, and there's a piece that's the business park.
Belongs to the park.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so right now I'd be looking for a motion to move to approve the expenditure of not more than $190,000 from the Lakes Business Park Phase 2 Capital Replacement Trust Fund for the resurfacing of Hounslow Avenue in the town of Guilford. So made by Counselor Lippman, seconded by Counselor Bogert. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, I'd ask anyone who's in favor of this to please raise your hands. That's 6 votes, 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 21C, request to use $33,700 of road impact fees for the reconstruction of Granite Street. As of July 31st, 2023, the road impact fee account balance was $38,304.67. Public Works requests City Council authorization to use $33,700 of its funds to help fund the reconstruction of Granite Street. Granite Street reconstruction starts on September 18th. Use of these funds for this project will allow Public Works to perform more work with the remaining road program funds in the spring of 2024. The amount of funds available for the 2024 road program will be reduced by $33,700 if the funds are not transferred. So right now, I'll be looking for a motion to move that the City Council approve the transfer of $33,700 from the road impact fees to the 2024 Road Capital Improvement Program for the reconstruction of Granite Street. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Bogert. Is there any further discussion, or maybe you can go right ahead, Counselor?
I'm just looking for a little clarification
Yes.
as to, is this a specific street that had storm damages while we're reconstructing it in this fashion?
Has old infrastructure, basically the drainage gave up, the sewer also is gone. Sewer's hailing that side. This will be the drainage in the road surface.
Is there any further discussion on this? Anything else you want to clarify, you feel the need to
Nope,
clarify?
no, I think I'm
City Manager? Okay. Motion's on the table, we have a second. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 21D, which is a proposal to increase transfer station fees due to increase in disposal costs. Kirk, would you, you and I have discussed this, would you like to lead us through a little bit?
I will. So each year we get new costs for disposal of our solid waste. And part of what we do some years, it's not every year, but we do have to increase what we charge in this. We're looking at a couple of different options, and Wes and I have had this conversation, and if you don't mind, I'd be glad to have him chime in as needed as well. Is we can continue to do this each year, come back in front of you, say this is what our new costs are estimated at, this is what we'd like to increase it to. We have the option of having some type of a formula set in place where what we get from waste management, we would use that in the formula, and each year have increase the rates as needed based on that formula that you approve. So there's a couple different options that we can go to. Oh, as you said, Mr. Mayor, we talked late in the day today. We are working on some numbers for you as far as exact cost of more than just the tipping fee cost. What is the overall cost of how we manage that program, and if that needs to be factored in there, and giving you some other options. Included in your packet is some, it does give you some current fees and the variables of what we would be looking for increases. This time, if we were to do a singular event, but again, we can always have the conversation as to if we want to have more of a formula put in place so we know what we're increasing to.
Thank you. My take on this was, and I'd be interested to know what other counselors think of this, trying to get a better understanding of what it costs to run the transfer station on a yearly basis, both our tipping fees and whatever we're paying to, is it waste management?
Yes.
Waste management, as well as what's our personnel costs associated with it and our variable costs associated with running it. It just seems peculiar that we're at, when we look at these numbers, it almost appears like it's barely break even. And that strikes me as sort of as odd, that we ought to have something in place that, I would just like to see the numbers to see, is it possible to pay for the transfer station with the fees that are, with the transfer fees that are paid by both the commercial and the residential? I'm not out to punish residential folks who need to use it, but on the other hand, do a pretty robust commercial business up there every time I go up there. And I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to take a step back here and maybe do a little bit of a projection for the next couple of years as to what we think based on previous years, what we're going to see for the volume that's going to be brought into the transfer station, and how do we put a revenue structure in place that allows us, and can we do it, to recoup that cost? Maybe you just can't do it, I don't know.
So the way the budget breaks down, and with the information that Director Anderson supplies to Glenn and I each month, being able to put together those numbers into a package form is not going to be very difficult.
That's what I'd like to see.
Go ahead.
I guess if we know that our costs today for just what we're paying direct is less than what we're collecting, I would suggest that we implement the change to recover our costs and have you come back as soon as possible with the approach that the mayor was talking about.
No, that's fine.
We can then adjust from there.
So I don't think we have, do we have a motion? We don't have a motion here. This is not in my packet as to increasing.
I do not have a current motion for you proposed.
So do we want to just table this?
I'd like to table this for, I'd like to table it, but
We'll
certainly we should-
bring it back with less, for the motion for this, we'll bring back with less other stuff in there. Strictly with this motion, the information for the current motion and a motion to go along with that.
Okay.
And we'll be working on the other
And
information.
at some point, I tried to understand this. I
Yeah,
couldn't understand this.
Yep.
either.
We can put that all together into a package.
Okay. So, is that a motion just to leave it on the agenda or table it?
Table.
Okay, motion by Counselor Littman to table, seconded by Counselor Bogart. Non-debatable, all those in favor of the tabling motion? It's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that item is tabled. Item number 21E. This is in regards to ordinance 2023-194-1, 194-8, proposals to fine transfer station customers who leave without paying the associated fees. You go right ahead.
One question I have is, how is this different than theft? And why are we treating it as just sort of a fine situation?
It's a theft of service.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a theft of service.
Theft of service. I
Yeah.
mean, why are we, I mean, I guess, don't we have statutes or city ordinance that allow us to do that? And is this unnecessary and actually compromise our ability for someone who is stealing effectively?
Well, yeah, okay, go ahead, Counsel.
I would say there's no question that it's a chargeable offense. The question becomes proof. And I think that's where the issue is here. We need to know who didn't pay and how we're gonna do that.
Don't we have the same problem? I mean, it's of assigning the fine?
Well, we do, but it says, no, sir, sit down, please, no. No. Look, I don't want to throw anybody out of a meeting, but if you have to abide by decorum here. If not, I will ask you to leave or I'll have you removed. Thank you.
Did we discuss this?
We discussed it, we're gonna back to our committee.
Yeah. Could we send this back to the?
We can't.
ordinance committee?
I'm happy to do that, but I think proving intent is always difficult, and right here it's an intent issue in regards to a criminal offense. Here's my take on this, if you were to ask me, is that one, I'm sure there are people, particularly residential folks, who may in fact just happen to drive off, right? I mean, that happens. It seems to me we ought to have a structure that says you're gonna be, first of all, we knew you come in because we've got some video and we know you're at least your plate and a shot of your face, okay? There's gotta be some way to follow up and let people know, hey, look, if this is a first offense, it was an oversight, a mix-up, lack of understanding, who knows? You get a warning, but you still gotta pay what you owed us originally, okay? A bare minimum. But then you've got the scofflaws, right? And I don't need to point a finger at anybody, but I think that might be some of the demo stuff that goes on there, that people are dumping off heavier loads that are more expensive. Putting a fine place a significant fine structure in place for those folks, I think is entirely appropriate, because it would just seem to me they have experience in this business and they know what they're doing. Again, how do you prove intent or proof? I don't know. But it seems to me with our residential stuff, we ought to be giving people a warning and ask them to pay what they owed us, though it's gonna be tough because they drove away. But we should be able to figure that out. Second offense, third offense, and then all of a sudden we see a pattern emerge here, and then we have escalating fines and maybe some removal of prevent people from using it if they're making a habit of it. I'd like to see that. The commercial stuff, though, I think it's gotta be more significant. There's gotta be a real deterrent there to know if you do pull away, it's gonna cost you a real serious chunk of change if you're trying to get away with it. I mean,
We had this-
my 2 cents.
We had this in committee, and we were in the middle of discussing how to make sure proof, because it's gonna go different levels.
Mhm.
That's where we had it, so if we can go back to that committee, please.
Could you also look at the concept of setting up the entry into the, so that they have to pay before they can even pass a certain point? And then,
And how they do the offloading weight to get the exact weight number.
so you say the same way you do other things, you go into a bar, you need to put your credit card.
A tab?
Leave your credit card there so that we can charge you afterwards.
Well, it's either that or
Guy's
someone
license and
gives you their
folder
license
back.
when they pull in.
Yeah,
Right, so you, at least you know who that person is, and they've gotta come back to get their license, but if by some chance they don't, then you know exactly who they are.
And we didn't discuss those. We did discuss, if you don't mind, at committee level, one was making sure that we do improve the way that we identify. But the second piece was make sure that we improve the way that we warn people of the drive-off. So we talked about those, we didn't necessarily,
Give them the opportunity to drive off,
Well,
I guess.
that really didn't come up, but we'll go back to committee.
We'll go back.
Well, the challenge there too is some people pay by check and pay cash. Right, when you pull in and we get weighed.
Then
so-
giving their license until they come
Okay.
back and come
Give us
through.
the license, and then when they come back, we give it back to
Fair
them.
enough.
That
That's what we
works.
do with rental cars today.
So under item, let's move on to We've sent that back to, which committee is that?
Government, operations and
Okay, Government Operations, and that's where you work on that. Thank you. Moving on to item number 21F, request to designate the east side of Gerard Street from Jewett Brook to Guilford Avenue a no parking zone. Kirk, would you lead us through that? I know, Counselor Susie, this is the behest of one of your constituents.
yes.
Go ahead, you could talk.
Okay. I received a call from this constituent, went down, looked at the area. I know the last time we were here, Mr. Anderson from the Department of Public Works did also an outline of this. We saw the street was not very wide. You park on one side, it's fine, lots of times people park on both sides, and there's no room for anybody to park in or outside of their driveways. It makes it very dangerous. Most of it's because the original street layout being so wide, not wide enough. So we want to put no parking on one side, and that will allow people on the street to be able to get through the street to their own driveways and be able to back out of the driveways without backing into somebody else. Wes, does that pretty well cover what we talked about?
Yes, sir. And we picked the east side because that's the side that's got the sidewalk on it.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
If there's any questions, if,
Typically, when we do these types of changes, we vet it somehow with the residents on the street. Has that happened?
Yeah, we sent out certified letters to everybody on the street.
No objections came in?
I didn't get any,
I didn't hear a word.
I didn't hear anything.
Are you objecting?
Yes.
What's this?
So come on up. The opportunity for you to speak to this matter has passed, but we'll
Oh,
give you a little
sorry.
flexibility. That's okay. Just introduce yourself and tell us your address.
So my name's Mike Mooney. I do live at 59 Gerard Street. This is pretty much all, I pretty much put all this in motion. The sidewalk side of the street is never an issue. It's never been an issue. Very rarely does anybody park there. It's across the street, two houses in particular. I have to back across my front lawn to get in my yard. Coney Police Department will not do nothing about it. I've talked to people in the last 2 weeks because they knew this was happening. Now everybody wants to park in their driveway. But I have pictures of tonight, people blocking my driveway. So the sidewalk side of it is absolutely useless to put no parking on. It's not even an issue. It's the other side of the road. Because I live at 59. I back a trailer in my yard daily. And I can't swing because everybody is parked in front of this White House. When they've got 3 driveways to park in.
So what would you propose?
I'd love to see no parking on both sides of the road. Be honest with you. No one should be parking on a sidewalk, and I get that, and I understand. But when somebody does park on that side of the road, it's not, you can get by them because they park all the way up on the sidewalk. I understand that that's not legal, but at least they're considerate when they park on that side of the road because there is room for them to do so. On the other side of the road, there is not. So that's parking on that side of the road is what blocks people's driveways.
I'm not convinced this solves the issue here.
Right, I think we'll have to sit down with Wes and go through it again.
Yeah, I think we should table this. I think we have notified all of the abutters, all the residents of this street. And is this the first we're hearing that this?
This is the first one I've heard, that I haven't received any others, Mr. Mayor.
It seems to me that this needs a little bit of work before we put no
Yes.
parking signs in there.
Right.
Whether it's
I'll-
referred to a
I'll get
committee
together
or
with
not, I'm
Wes.
happy to do that.
Which committee would it go to?
Works Committee.
We'll go to Public Works. Now,
I'm there.
Public Works Committee, we're not gonna vote on this tonight, and let's go take another deeper dive on this, okay?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. All right. Kirk, want to walk us through 21G?
Sure. So I was asked by the planning department to make sure you have your representatives to the Capital Improvements Committee. If you look on page 2 there, the resolution, it actually lays out as the Finance Committee, but you, Mr. Mayor, can appoint a substitute. Currently, as it stands right now, Councilor Cheney and Councilor Haynes are on it with a vacancy from the late Councilor Hamel. the current finance committees, Council Littman, Cheney, and Susie, so,
We have Counselor Cheney who is there.
yep. So it would be up to you for discussion as to who you would like, and I will send those.
Since I'm not gonna be here past December, I think probably should be
You're
somewhere.
gloating?
reason-
Are you
No,
gloating?
I'm not gloating at all. I'm just-
Mr. Mayor, that's exactly the reason why I was asking about
No, so I wasn't my intention to put him on there, so.
that. Okay.
Counselor Felch isn't here.
How about, I'm going to put Counselor Bogart on that committee right now, and,
It's a good learning one to.
there you go. And then
Thank you.
we'll,
Is that the
Well-
committee or the finance committee?
No, he's talking about this specifically, the,
Capital Improvements Committee.
Capital
Oh,
Improvement
okay,
Committee. It's the finance committee, but it can be altered.
So, we'll put Counselor Bogart on that committee right now with his acceptance.
you.
And we'll go from there.
So you'd like,
So like,
Counselor Cheney, Counselor Susie, who's
H, Resolution 2023-26, relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend an Office of Highway Safety grant, grant number 24-098 on behalf of the city in the amount of $32,200 for the Laconia Police Department. This is a request from Laconia Police Department to accept and expend a grant for the Office of Highway Safety in the amount of $32,200 to be used for the following project titles: speed enforcement, DUI, distracted driving, pedestrian, bicycle, join the New Hampshire Click, drive sober or get pulled over, you drive, you text, you pay, community outreach, betterment, COB grant. The city's share of this grant is $8,050, which will be entirely covered by in-kind services. That may lead to some more traffic stops there, Counselor Bogart, I would suspect. So right now, I have a series of three motions. First one is to waive a reading of Resolution 2023-26 in its entirety and to read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative. Motion passes. Next, looking to move a first reading of Resolution 2023 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend an Office of Highway Safety grant on behalf of the city in the amount of $32,200 for the Laconia Police Department. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Susie. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to count the heads, and I think we've got 5 in favor. You know, I start to create good habits, and the moment things change, I can't break the darn habit. Next, we're looking to move to schedule a public hearing on September 25th, 2023, during the regular city council meeting to gather input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 22A, under unfinished business. Establishment of a bridge repair and reconstruction capital reserve fund, and to transfer $65,500 to the fund. Due to engineering, design, and construction schedules, bridge projects are often spread over several years and are subject to frequent delays. In the past, funding for bridge projects have been carried forward from year to year. Establishment of the reserve fund will allow for better accounting of bridge project funds by eliminating the need to carry forward such funds numerous times. The August 28, 2023 City Council meeting, a motion was approved to schedule a public hearing. That public hearing was held earlier this evening. There's no fiscal impact. The requested transfer into this reserve has previously been appropriated as part of the fiscal year 24 approved budget. Looking for a series of 3 motions on this. The first is to waive a reading of Resolution 2023-22 in its entirety and read by title only. So made by Counselor Cheney, seconded by Counselor Susie. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, if you're in favor, please raise your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Next, looking to move a second reading of Resolution 2023-22 relative to the establishment of a bridge repair and reconstruction capital reserve fund, and to transfer $65,500 to the fund. So made by Counselor Bogart, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, if you're in favor, raise your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Next, and finally on this item, looking to move to approve Resolution 2023 relative to the establishment of a bridge repair and reconstruction capital reserve fund, and to transfer $65,500 to that fund. So made by Counselor Bogart, seconded by Counselor Susie. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, if you're in favor, raise your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes as well. Thank you. Item number 22B, Resolution 2023-23, establishment of a street and highway project capital reserve fund and transfer of $52,400 fund. Each year, the city council raises and appropriates funds for the repair of city streets and highways for various reasons such as weather, coordination with outside parties, and unforeseen engineering obstacles. Funds are sometimes not spent by year end. In the past, the city has addressed this problem through a series of carry-forwards from year to year. Establishment of the reserve provides a more efficient means of managing these funds while ensuring that they will be used for the purpose established by the city council. At the August 28, 2023 city council meeting, a motion was approved to schedule a public hearing, which occurred earlier this evening. There is no fiscal impact. The requested transfer into this reserve has already been appropriated as part of the fiscal year 24 approved budget. Again, on this matter, we're looking for a series of 3 motions. The first is to motion to move to waive a reading of Resolution 2023-23 in its entirety and read by title only, so made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, if you're in favor, raise your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. Next, we're looking to move to second reading of Resolution 2023-23 relative to the establishment of a street and highway project capital reserve fund and transfer $52,400 to the fund. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if you'd like to see it passed, raise your hands. There you go. 5 votes in the affirmative, that motion passes. And finally, looking to move to approve Resolution 2023-23 relative to the establishment of a street and highway project capital reserve fund and transfer $52,400 into that fund. So made by Councilor Susie, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on that matter? Yes, Councilor.
I guess on this one and others, in terms of amending the monthly report that has all the kind of reserve funds on it, we assume that includes these changes will be added to that report?
Yeah, we can do that. Yep.
Terrific. Any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, if you're in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 22C, Resolution 2023-24, approval of bonding for the purpose of purchasing a replacement fire engine. The fiscal year 24 budget adopted by the City Council on June 27, 2023, included a provision for replacement of fire engine number 2, which is 32 years old, in poor condition, and has reached the end of its useful life. At the August 28, 2023 City Council meeting, a motion was approved to schedule a public hearing in this matter. That public hearing was held earlier in this evening's agenda. The fiscal impact of this matter. Exact fiscal impact is conditional on interest rates at the date of issuance. Current estimates are that the interest rates at the time the bond is issued will be approximately 3%. Using this rate, the interest cost over the life of the bond is estimated to be $294,000 over the 20-year term of the bond and $28,100 in fiscal year 24. City manager recommends approving this resolution authorizing bonds for the purpose of purchasing a replacement fire engine number 2 in the amount of $935,000. Kirk, can you tell us, was that 28.1 for fiscal year 24 in the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
To know.
A series of 3 motions here. The first is to move to waive a reading of Resolution 2023-24 relative to approval of the bonding for the purpose of purchasing a replacement fire engine. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this matter?
I guess generally, this get referred to the Finance Committee afterwards. Is this part of the motion?
Yes, and it's actually in the resolution. It will, under B, it will go to the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Seeing, did you have a question for us, or, I'm sorry?
I have a question after the next motion.
Oh, okay. You're way ahead of us. You gotta slow down. We can only go so fast. All those in favor of the motion that's on the table, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. The next motion we're looking for is to move a second reading of Resolution 2023-24 relative to approval of bonding for the purpose of purchasing a replacement fire engine. So made by Councilor Bogert, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Councilor Susie.
During the last council meeting, thank you, Mr. Mayor, I thought we had a question or discussion about how the In other words, it was like a 1 year or 2 year lead time on the fire engine. And we had asked questions about when do we have to make the payment, so when are we really going out and getting the bond? And is we gonna be holding on to this money? for
They
a
are
very-
receiving all their RFPs now, both for the engines, and the ambulances, as well as some of the other stuff that you bought in there. So we don't have all the information on that, but what's been included in the RFPs is trying to get the best information we can for those questions right there, and maybe even the best deal on time frame, lead times, when we gotta pay, all that. So
Okay.
that'll all be in front of the finance committee before we do anything.
Okay, okay.
Sounds
Well,
right.
as a member of the finance committee, I'll see that then. Thank you.
You sure you trust yourself?
No, I just said, I know I answered those questions the last time, but I haven't seen it.
So there's a motion on the table. If there's no further discussion on this matter, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Finally, on this matter, we're looking to move to approve Resolution 2023-24, relative to approval of bonding for the purpose of purchasing a replacement fire engine. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this particular motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes as well. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 22D, resolution 2023-25, approval of bonding to fund sanitary sewer fund capital projects for the period of fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2026. Glenn, about a 15,000-foot view on this.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. As part of the rate-setting process that the council went through in the spring, there was a system set up whereby capital projects are to be funded through bonds on a rotating 3-year cycle. So the motion before you now would be to fund a series of capital improvement projects within the sanitary sewer fund, starting this year and proceeding for the next several years.
And that way, so people in the future who come into the city participate in some of the
Right.
costs, as opposed to laying it all on everybody now.
It's a brilliant approach to this. Thank you, Mr. Smith. So that being said, we have a series of 3 motions on this matter. The first is to move to waive a reading of Resolution 2023-5, relative to approval of bonding to fund sanitary sewer fund capital projects for the period of fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2026. So made by Counselor Chidi, seconded by Counselor Susie. Any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Next, looking to move a second reading of Resolution 2023-25, relative to approval of bonding to fund sanitary sewer fund capital projects for the period of fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2026. So made by Counselor Littman,
Yes.
seconded by Counselor Cheney. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. And finally, on this matter, looking to move to approve Resolution 2023-25, relative to approval of bonding to fund sanitary sewer fund capital projects for the period of fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2026. So made by Counselor Susie, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, if you're in favor, raise your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you again. Okay. We're plugging away. We will go into a non-public, do you need a moment?
No.
No, okay. We will go into a non-public session at the end of this. It will be brief. We'll come back into public session only to adjourn. There'll be no new business taken up when we come back from non-public. Item number 22E, Resolution 2023-26, approval of 2026 Weirs Boulevard Route 3 Bridge over Langley Brook and New Hampshire DOT project agreement. The state's current 10-year transportation improvement plan, 2023 to 2033, included the reconstruction of Weirs Boulevard Route 3 Bridge over Langley Brook, with the work to be constructed in 2026. The Weirs Boulevard Route 3 Bridge over Langley Brook on the state's Municipal Bridge Red List. In November 2014, the city requested the Weirs Boulevard Bridge over Langley Brook be included in the New Hampshire DOT Municipal Bridge Aid Program. The bridge is in the federal municipally owned Bridge Rehabilitation and Replacement Program created under the Federal Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The city's share for this project is 20%. The anticipated project cost is, is about $2.9 million. The federal share is about $2.3 million. The city share, which reflects 20%, is $583,184. Hoyle Tanner Engineer has been selected as the primary engineering design firm. CMA Engineers have been selected to be the construction engineering firm. At the August 28th, 2023 City Council meeting, a motion was approved to schedule a public hearing on this matter. That public hearing was held earlier in this evening. The Langley Clove redevelopment project by Brady Sullivan has committed to participating in 1/3 of the city's share of the project. Brady Sullivan would then write a check to the city of Laconia for 33.3% of the city's $583,184, resulting in a net cost to the city of approximately $388,789. This report was submitted by Nathaniel Garrett, Assistant DPW Director. He is recommending the City Council approve the agreement and authorize the city manager to sign the State Bridge Aid and Federal Aid Programs project agreement for the bridge. This matter comes with three individual motions. The first is to motion to move to waive a reading of Resolution 2023-26 relative to approval of 2026 Weirs Boulevard Bridge over Langley Brook NHDOT project agreement. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Susie. Is there any further discussion on this? Yes, sir.
The money is the city share, and what year is that fiscally?
We're gonna start putting it in over most likely would be the next 2 fiscal years that we'll put money away.
Okay, is there money already allocated?
No,
in the
we
budget?
haven't put any money in current fiscal year. It'll be, there may be some leftover bridge money that we can put towards it, that's with that reserve account, and then, budget for it over the next, most likely, I'm not trying to say we're not sure, but most likely the next 2 fiscal years.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we may have all that money put aside and paid for prior to the project.
Yeah, there's a
Commencing.
possibility. Yep.
Okay. A motion on the table. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of this particular motion, please raise your hand. That's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Next, we're looking to move a second reading of 2023 relative, 20-26, relative to approval of 2026 Weirs Boulevard Bridge over Langley Brook, New Hampshire DOT project agreement. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Susie. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. And finally, on this matter, looking for a motion to move to approve Resolution 2023-26 relative to approval of 2026 Weirs Boulevard Bridge over Langley Brook NHDOT project agreement. So made by Councilor Cheney, seconded by Councilor Haynes. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, thus, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion passes. Thank you very much. Seems like I read the same motion 5 times there. 22F on our agenda, ownership and maintenance of Pickerel Pond Road. We have a motion to table made by Councilor Lippman. Is there a second? By Councilor Bogert. It is non-debatable. All those in favor of the motion to table, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 4 votes in the affirmative. Please let the record reflect that Councilor Cheney left the room and has recused himself. I've never seen him move so fast. I thought he was actually going for the coffee maker. Anyway, so that matter is tabled. Moving on to item number 22G, agenda item number 22G is 2023-59-12, amending Chapter 59 Parks and Recreation Commission, adding a new section, 5912, Parks and Recreation Commission Rules and Regulations. Kirk, could you lead us through this a little bit?
Sure, there was, excuse me, there was recommendation from Parks and Rec Director, excuse me, and the Parks Commission to start to work on the ability for the police department to enforce some of the rules that are in the parks rules. Now, the only way to do that is to put them into an ordinance form. And instead of taking all of their park rules at once and putting them into one ordinance and having them do that, They broke down a couple that they felt was most fitting at this point. This did go through the Government Operations and Ordinance Subcommittee. They reviewed these, had very limited discussion over, objection to any of it, and very limited discussion on it. They liked the process that was here, and has recommended that it go to the full council for a vote, and this will be to send it to a public hearing.
This will be to send it to where?
Public hearing.
Thank you. I have a series of 3 motions here. The first one,
Yeah,
Those-
public hearing, 3 motions. 3
just-
motions for
just to
public-
get public hearing, huh? Remarkable.
No.
Yeah, just vote.
We don't need 3 for a public hearing.
You just
No,
need 1, right?
no, you don't need 3 for a public hearing.
We're looking for a motion to schedule a public hearing on September 25th, 2023, during the regular city council meeting to gather public input prior to any action being taken. So made by Counselor Lippman, seconded by Counselor Bogart. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. There you go, 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Superb pickup there, superb.
Trying to save you from having to
He was on a roll, so we just figured we'd write him that way too.
dreaming them.
Okay, item number 22H.
Table.
Motion to table, so made by Counselor Susie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Bogart. Non-debatable motion. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. It's 5 votes in the affirmative. That motion is tabled. 22I, fireworks. What a way to finish the night. Counselor Felch is not here. I would prefer to address this at some point when he is here, since he was the moving party behind it.
Table it.
Two.
Press the table by Counselor Susie.
Second.
Second by Counselor Haynes. Non-debatable. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hands. That's 5 votes in the affirmative, and that motion goes to the table. All right, so right now, as I indicated, we will be going into a non-public session under RSA 91-A, capital A, colon 3, Roman 2, parentheses D, consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property, which, if discussed in public, would likely benefit a party or parties whose interests are adverse to those of the general community. We will have a presentation from a member of the public. So, we need a motion to go into non-public. So made by Counselor Bogart, seconded by Counselor Haynes. Katie, if you could call the roll?
Counselor Cheney?
Yes.
Counselor Susie?
Yes.
Counselor Littman?
Yes.
Counselor Haynes?
Yes.
Counselor Bogart?
Yes.
It's five votes in the affirmative.
Have to go offline.